All right, we are live. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. There we go. We're live. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Brianna Mosher, and I'm with the Flint and Genesee Chamber of Commerce. Today, we're going to be talking about the Michigan Small Business Restart Program. A couple of housekeeping items to address before we get started. This presentation will be recorded and available on our website later today. Also, feel free to drop your comments and questions in the chat feature at any time. We'll have plenty of time at the end of today's presentation to address those. With us, we have Tyler and Ryan. I'm going to introduce them in just a minute, but before we get started, we're going to review the purpose and outcomes of today's presentation. So the purpose of today is to provide an overview of the Michigan Small Business Restart Program as an opportunity for your business to secure some working capital. The outcomes, or what you should expect at the end of today, is a general understanding of the grant program and questions about the program and application process answered. So now is the time to start thinking about those. As I mentioned today, we have with us Ryan Hunt, who is the Regional Director of Growth and Development with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, and Tyler Ross Messler, who is the Director of Economic Development with the Flint and Genesee Chamber of Commerce. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Ryan to get things started, and then he will hand it over to Tyler to talk more about the program, the criteria, and answer all of your questions. Ryan?
All right, thank you, Bree, and Tyler, thank you and the entire Flint and Genesee Chamber team. It's certainly a pleasure to be with everybody today, and hopefully we can provide some timely and relevant information on this new grant program that just went live at 9 a.m. this morning. I think today marks another milestone in our ongoing recovery efforts across Michigan. Following the outbreak of COVID-19, many small businesses have faced and continue to face a series of significant economic impacts, including challenges with cash flow and resources needed to support their workforce. At the same time, small business has never been more important to the economic health and vitality of our communities across this great state. Now, as small businesses and nonprofits continue to wonder how they can reopen following the pandemic's impact on our local economies, it could not be more clear that programs approved by the Michigan Strategic Fund Board last week are more important now than ever in order for Michigan to address the impacts of the ongoing pandemic here in our state. And to that end, the MEDC has taken the Michigan Small Business Restart Grant Program and the Michigan Agricultural Safety Grant Program, which is also launching today for farms and agricultural processors, from paper to functioning programs. That includes custom-built applications and landing pages for both programs, new administrative and reporting processes, and perhaps most importantly, close coordination with key stakeholders so that we're in a position to start getting $115 million into the hands of businesses across the state that have been impacted by COVID-19. And this comes just 2 weeks after legislation authorizing these programs was signed into law by Governor Whitmer. The speed in which this team was able to put together these support programs will be crucial to continuing the path to economic recovery in our state. And with the launch of these grants, the MEDC team over the past 4 months has deployed 17 COVID response programs. That's allowed us to support more than 3,400 companies across all 83 counties in Michigan. It's also helped to retain more than 14,700 jobs for Michigan workers, all while we've also facilitated the production of more than 5.5 million units of personal protective equipment and other critical supplies here in Michigan. We've also made it a focus to ensure that recovery efforts focus on economic opportunities for all businesses throughout the state. To date, 42% of our relief efforts deployed by the MEDC have gone to disadvantaged areas here in Michigan. More specifically, on the Michigan Small Business Restart Grant Program, this program is modeled after our Small Business Relief Program that we rolled out back in March. That program provided $10 million in grants to over 2,700 businesses and a little over $4 million in loans to 74 companies across the state. The Michigan Small Business Restart Program that went live today, that allocates $100 million in CARES Act funding to 15 local economic development organizations, including our wonderful partners at the Flint and Genesee Chamber, to support small businesses and nonprofits in all counties of Michigan in order to help reduce the economic impact of the ongoing pandemic on small businesses and their workers. For this grant, grants will be available up to $20,000. That'll make it possible for small businesses to access working capital to help support payroll, rent, mortgage payments, utilities, and similar expenses. This program also acknowledges the need that we continue to ensure equitable opportunities across the state. By statute, it is required that 30% of the funds awarded through this program are provided to women-owned, minority-owned, and veteran-owned businesses and nonprofits. We're working closely with stakeholder groups around Michigan to ensure that this statutory requirement is met. All grant applications received will be considered by our economic development partners like the Flint and Genesee Chamber after August 5th. I think it's important to note that while the program went live today at 9 a.m., it is not on a first come, first served basis. Companies do have from today until August 5th to submit an application. So you do have a few weeks in order to get your application materials in order and submit it live through our website. Working with stakeholder groups and economic development partners, we will employ the full set of marketing and communication tools available to help make sure that businesses across the state are aware of the availability of these funds. We're also working closely with Governor Whitmer and her office, our partners in state government, such as the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, and the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, along with the legislature and other local stakeholders to drive economic relief efforts and ensure that small businesses across the state continue to receive access to critical funding. I'll wrap up by, once again, Tyler, thanking you and your team for being exceptional partners throughout this process. And I'll also encourage any eligible small business to submit an application over the next few weeks to access additional funding so that we can continue building a runway for long-term economic recovery in Flint and Genesee County and across the state.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for being here. Thanks to the MEDC for making this a priority. We're thankful that you recognize that small business is important to this economy, and we're happy to be partners with you in that. So real quick, excuse me, I want to walk through some quick facts. I want to walk through the process, and then we'll answer questions. So just to highlight some things that Ryan may have already mentioned, but just to put a finer point on it, the state set aside $100 million for small businesses statewide. $8 million are allocated to our region, and that's a 7-county region, I-69 corridor and the Thumb, including Genesee County. Maximum grant is $20,000, and the funds will be distributed before September 30th, 2020. So the application is between now and August 5th. After August 5th, decisions will be made, and you'll get the money. The companies will get the money before September 30th. One other thing I should have put on here was that small businesses means 50 or less, and nonprofits are also qualified. So if you're a small business or a nonprofit, you can apply for this money. And the eligible uses are working capital to support payroll, rent, mortgages, mortgage payments, utility expenses, and other similar expenses. So really working capital to help your business operate. Next slide. So qualifications, you have to be a business located in Michigan. You have to have 50 employees or fewer worldwide. You can demonstrate that you or your business or your industry was impacted by COVID-19. You can demonstrate that you had loss of income as a result of COVID-19 and that you need working capital. And again, that's for nonprofits and for small businesses. And like Ryan mentioned, 30% of the funds, at least 30% of the funds will be awarded to women-owned, minority-owned, or veteran-owned businesses through this program. A little bit about the process. The application is live right now, July 15th. Will be open for the next 3 weeks. You go to michiganbusiness.org/restart to fill out the application. There, after August 5th, a regional review panel will score the applications and make suggestions. And then the grantees will get a grant, make sure they have a grant agreement and all their paperwork lined up before September 1st so that we can begin getting the funds out before September 30th. And we have to do that by statute. We have to get the money out to the companies before the end of the fiscal year, September 30th. So that's a real brief overview. I think we'll take some questions if you want to type them into your chat feature or the comment feature on Facebook or on YouTube. We're happy to answer any questions. And with that, I just want to really I want to encourage folks, if you have a small business, apply for this. If you have a nonprofit you care about that has 50 or less employees, tell them to apply for this. This money is federal money that the state has made available to us, and we want to make sure it goes out. So with that, Ryan and Bree, should we take questions? There we go.
Yes, let's go ahead and take some questions at this time. So we will give a couple of minutes for those to come through. Now's the time to type those into the chat box. If you have additional questions that you would like clarified regarding the grant program, a couple of things that I want to make sure we clear up before we get into questions. Again, to reiterate, Tyler, you said that $8 million has been allocated to our region. And I know there was some confusion about this the first go around. So again, can you just clarify what that means when you say our region?
Yeah.
Although we are the Flint and Genesee Chamber of Commerce, this space will be serving several different counties.
Yeah, we work real closely in an economic development sense with the six surrounding counties. The state has divided the state of Michigan government has divided the state into various regions, and our region is Shiawassee, Genesee, Lapeer, St. Clair County, Tuscola, Huron, and Sanilac counties. And the Flint and Genesee Chamber is acting as the administrative organization for the grants in that area. The thing to note is that Genesee County represents roughly 50% of the population of those 7 counties. So when we say our region, we mean those 7 counties, but everyone should know that we're about half of that region by population.
All right, thank you for clearing that up. We did have one question come in so far. Does this apply to other local chambers or 501c6 groups?
Yep, all nonprofits can apply. So chambers, churches, and any other nonprofit can apply as long as they have 50 or less employees.
Okay. And another question, what documents will be needed in the application process?
Right now, Ryan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but right now you have to fill out the application online, and then there is kind of an agreement that you have to sign that you say basically what I've provided is true and accurate, and then a W-9 so that if you're receiving the money, we have the W-9 to make sure it's all appropriate. Ryan, is there anything else there?
No, you answered that question.
Great.
Okay, and so you define small businesses as a business with 50 employers or less. Is that 50 full-time equivalent? For example, if the business has 60 part-time employees, would they be eligible?
I'm gonna let Ryan take that one.
Yeah, it's 50 employees total, so they do not all have to be full-time employees. It's just 50 employees total for the business.
So 50 total employees, FTE, and it's on a specific date, right, Ryan? 50 employees total.
Yeah, 50 employees on the date of the application and on March 16th, 2020. And you'll see that in the application when you complete it. So it would have to be 50 employees as of March 16th, 2020, and as of the date of the application.
Yeah.
All right, good, thank you. And we talked a little bit about which documents would be required, but we had another question come in. Can you clarify how a business can demonstrate their need?
I'll take a first stab, and then Ryan, why don't you jump in?
Sure.
How a business can demonstrate need would be just to be telling the story about how maybe they were affected by a executive order and they were forced to shut down, or because of the nature of their business or their nonprofit work that they've had to take on new costs to account for social distancing and other personal protective equipment. I think it's going to be a pretty low barrier to prove need and to prove effect, but it is in the legislation.
Yep.
So I would just think about how the pandemic has affected your business, and did it help it or hurt it? And if it hurt it, you'll have to just kind of like indicate that, and maybe tell the story of how.
Yeah, I don't have much else to add there, Tyler. Again, I think you answered that question appropriately. It'll really be self-certification of those losses and the demonstration of losses on the application. I would note that I would encourage companies, if they have their profit and loss statements or payroll records or notice of closure, something that does document those losses, that they retain that documentation in the event that that particular grant is audited. There will be an audit process those are selected at random once the program is complete. So although you don't have to provide that documentation when you submit the application, I would retain those documents just in the event that those grants are audited.
Great.
Great. And we did have one clarifying question come in on a response that we had previously gave. So it's 50 full-time employees, and the answer would be it's 50 employees total, whether they're full-time or part-time, correct?
Correct. 50 people. Think of it as 50 people. You might have 2 people that each work part-time. That would be 1 FTE, but that would be 2 people. Mm-hmm. So we're going 50 total employees, 50 total people or less.
Okay. And you mentioned during the timeline that we will have a review committee who will be reviewing these applications. Can you talk a little bit about what goes into the scoring process?
Yep. The scoring process will be looking at the application that the company picks out, and things that will be scored will be like how many employees have been retained, how long the business has been in existence, how much they were affected by the pandemic. It will also include questions about the industry and trying to make sure we hit a diverse industry, trying to make sure we hit a diverse geographic distribution of this, and then the importance of the business. Now, for example, if you are a small restaurant in a rural town, then you might score pretty high as far as like importance to the community of that business, or if you're a large employer in that area, and those type of things. So that's a little bit of the criteria. Ryan, do you want to add anything to that? Okay.
No, again, great job answering that question. And you get a lot of those review criteria, or that review criteria, to some degree will be driven locally. So again, we appreciate the time that you and your team have put into putting together that review process and that scoring criteria.
Yep.
Okay, so we have another question here. Say you apply for a $20,000 grant. If you are granted funds, can the amount granted vary?
The region has decided to give out awards between $5,000 and $20,000. So I would say that if you have a $20,000 need, to list your $20,000. Mm-hmm. Like I said, we're going to try to make sure that we are spreading this out geographically and industry-wise. So you might only get 10,000, but I would say make your request for what you need.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Same. Agreed. Yeah. Make the request for what that need is. If you can demonstrate the need, then make that request, and then work with the local economic development partners to determine what that final amount will be.
All right. And you mentioned that the grant application opened at 9 a.m. I know the website's been very busy already, but it looks like we've already had a couple of people who've gone to check it out. We have one question about the application specifically. It asks you to find or add your company to access the grant application. Any clarification on how they go about that?
I can weigh in here. Part of the current legislation is that if you are a winner of the state's relief program in March, you cannot be a winner of this program. That is confusing because there's been lots of programs through various things. I think in Genesee County, we've had 4 or 5 local programs. If you won money from the state in early April, late March, reach out to me or Tracy to just help you double check. But I can tell you only 50 companies in Genesee County got that grant. So unless if you got the PPP loan or EIDL, you're fine. You can apply for this. If you got local MOT money or consumers energy money, you're fine. It's just about that small grant program the state ran in early March, and we're happy to help you on a more individual basis on that. But the list of who got that grant is on the state's website, and you have the opportunity to double check it there. But like I said, there are only 50 or 52 winners in Genesee County. So,
and I think it's important to note, Tyler,
go ahead.
It's not just the federal funding or some of the local funding that has been available over the past few months. Even the majority of the MEDC programs that we've rolled out since March, whether it's Match on Main or other programs, even the small business relief loans that we had back in March. If you are a loan recipient, you are eligible, but by statute, by law, with this new program, it was the grant recipients for that relief program that we rolled out in March that are currently ineligible for accessing this funding.
And I'll say this, and not because we're on our channel, Ryan, that if you think that's unjust, call your state legislator or state senator, because they made that rule and they have the ability to fix that.
Okay. Are Wayne County businesses eligible for these grant funds?
Wayne County has its own program. Wayne County's in Michigan. Wayne County has a program. The Flint and Genesee Chamber is not going to be administering the Wayne County grant program.
But if you are a Wayne County business, you can still apply at the same website, michiganbusiness.org/restart. You can find the application there. What Tyler is basically saying is that when you do apply, it won't be the Flint and Genesee Chamber that reviews your application. It'll be one of our local economic development partners in Wayne County.
Yeah. But again, good point, Ryan. Everyone applies at the same place, michiganbusiness.org/restart. It'll ask for your address. You don't have to worrying about who is going to handle it or what. You just put in your address and it will point you to the right place.
Mm-hmm. So another question coming in regarding if you've already received a grant, you're not eligible for that. Is that true? And so back to Tyler's point, to an extent, it depends on which grant you're referring to. Tiff, if you have a question, I would say reach out to us individually and we'll help check and see if you're eligible.
Yep. Probably you're going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. Another question coming in regarding the determined amount that will be received. So like Tyler said, apply for what you need. It doesn't necessarily mean that you will get that full amount. You'll get somewhere between, if chosen, $5,000 and $20,000. But Tyler, do you have any additional information to share on the criteria of how the amount will be determined?
It's going to be determined by how much money we have to give out and how we can have the most impact with that money. So again, just put what you need in there, and we're going to try to get you as much as possible.
Good. This is a good question. How would a nonprofit organization qualify for woman-owned, minority-owned?
Yeah, we have more than just that 30%. So the legislation requires that 30% of the money goes to women-owned, minority-owned, veteran-owned businesses. But the other 70% of the money, nonprofits can qualify for. So that's a really good distinction, to be clear that if you're a nonprofit, you're not owned. So you can't be women-owned, you can't be minority-owned, et cetera. So, but you do qualify for the money. It's just, it will come out of the 70% remaining rather than the 30% designation.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying that, Tyler. I think I may have misspoken in my quick overview earlier when mentioning the for-profit and nonprofit businesses lumped together. But like you said, the nonprofit side, there's no ownership. Technically, it's the minority, women, and veteran-owned business designation is for the for-profit businesses that will be applying for this grant program.
But you're equally opportunity here to win a grant.
All right, next question says, I run bingos for my nonprofit organization. Would my organization qualify? So from what we've heard, small business, nonprofit, within the 50 employees range, they would qualify.
Yep.
If you have two businesses, can you apply for both separately?
Yes. Ryan, why don't you answer that?
I think you just did yes. If there are two entities that are owned even by one person, but if they're separate entities with separate federal tax identification numbers, then they can both apply.
Yep. And if they're both in the same county, that you can apply there. If they're in different, you might have one business in Flint and one business in Grand Rapids, they can both apply.
Okay.
And yeah, right.
Okay. Is there a separate federal program as well that can be accessed? And if so, would the Flint and Genesee Chamber assist in obtaining those funds?
There are other federal programs we're happy to help. Most notably, the payroll protection program has been extended. The economic injury disaster loan through the SBA is also still available. We can assist. Absolutely happy to help. Please reach out. We're just helping the state on this program. We're helping the state administer this grant program.
Yeah, and just to give a quick plug, we have been in talks with the SBA about getting them on to do another webinar to answer some of those questions about the update. So if the federal programming is something that you're interested in learning more about, keep an eye out on our website and Facebook page for more information on that.
Mm-hmm.
Last question I see here. If you are participating in the Work Shares program, can you still apply?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Good question. Yep.
As long as you meet all other eligibility criteria and you're participating in WorkShare, you can certainly apply.
Perfect. All right, so that was the last question for today. We'll stick around for a couple of minutes to make sure that no additional questions come in. I know, Tyler, you had mentioned that on the website, there will be some qualifying questions up front that help applicants determine their eligibility. That's correct, right?
Yeah. So as you go through the process, you'll learn the eligibility through the application process as well.
Okay. Last clarifying question. Did you say that if we received the EIDL grant, we are not eligible? I received $1,000, and that's a completely separate program, correct?
That's separate. That's a federal program. This is the state program, and you are still eligible. It's like hard to say. Yes, you are eligible if you got an EIDL, if you got a PPP, if you got many other types of grants, you're still eligible. So yeah.
The program that would disqualify you from being eligible for this grant program would be that first round of state funding.
The Michigan Small Business Relief Grant. Mm-hmm. And in Genesee County, we gave out 52 of those, and they were all about $5,000. So if you got a $5,000 grant and you worked with the Flint and Genesee Chamber in early April to get that grant, then I would just make sure to clarify. If you didn't get that, then just assume you're eligible.
Okay.
Bree, I'll clarify one point as well for those that are planning on applying for the program. If you log on to the website right now and you start the application process, there is not a way that you can save your application and come back later. So you have to complete it all at one time. However, if you do open up the application and for some reason you have to step away or close the window, you can print your application as it currently stands so that you can, when you do go back to it, you can start filling out that application based on your printout, and hopefully it'll just be a little bit quicker to input that information. And then also, if you go to the michiganbusiness.org/restart website, underneath the application process header, there is a PDF link to the application. So if you're wondering what questions or what documentation you need to submit ahead of time, that way you can gather all of those materials before going through and submitting that application online. That'll give you a better idea of what the application looks like and what questions and requirements are included.
But you do have to submit it online to be
correct. You do have to submit it online.
Right. Okay. So you can collect it offline, review it offline, but you have to go through the process online to submit it.
Correct.
This was great. Thanks, Bree. Good questions.
One more time, I'm going to go ahead and put that website up on the screen. So you guys are seeing it here, www.michiganbusiness.org/restart. I know it can be a little bit confusing because some of the other grant programs that we facilitated, you've gone directly to our website, and you will find information there, but it's going to redirect you to this state website. One more time, I just want to give a shout out to Tyler and his team. They've been working very tirelessly on all of these grant programs since we started. But we're more than happy to help. If you guys have questions as you're navigating through the application process or just finding additional resources on this grant program or maybe others, feel free to reach out to us at the Flint and Genesee Chamber of Commerce. Tyler and Ryan, anything that you guys want to add before we wrap up today?
We're here to help, so feel free to reach out to us, and we're rooting for you, and we want to help you through this process.
Well said. Yeah, thank you, Tyler and Bree and the Flint and Genesee Chamber team again for allowing me to be part of this webcast today. Like Tyler said, if you have any questions, please reach out. And again, encourage all eligible small businesses to apply so that we can get some additional funding out the door here over the next several weeks and into these businesses.
Great. And again, this recording will be available on our Facebook and YouTube page, on our website, along with some of the other COVID resources that we've been posting within the last few weeks. So feel free to always check back to our website for up-to-date information.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Joining us.